The war had finally ended. The alien empire known as the Zurel Dominion stood victorious. Many soldiers from different species had fought, but it was the humans, especially one quiet man named Callan, who had turned the tide. Callan wasn't a soldier. He was an engineer. But he had repaired machines during the worst battles, stopped explosions before they happened, and even saved lives with quick thinking. Because of him, the main Zurel fleet had stayed in the sky. Now, Callan stood in the grand hall of the Empire. Tall pillars rose to the ceiling. Strange alien music played softly. Lights from above sparkled like stars. In front of him stood the Zurel High Commander, a lizard-like creature with golden armor. "You have done well, human Callan," the commander hissed. "For your service, you will receive your reward." Callan didn't ask for anything. He just wanted to go home. But the Zurels believed every hero should take a prize. Behind a heavy curtain, guards brought out several rewards: gold, crystals, rare tools. But at the end of the line stood something that made Callan's heart pause. It was a girl. She looked around 20 years old, though it was hard to tell. Her skin had a soft blue tone with hints of violet, and her silver-white hair hung over her shoulders. She wore a thin, simple cloth and didn't look up. A collar was around her neck with a tag that read only one word: Unit 93. "She is yours," the commander said proudly. "A trained pleasure animal. She will obey, she does not speak much, and she is clean." Callan blinked. "A what?" "A reward," the commander repeated. "These creatures are bred and trained for comfort. You may keep her." The hall went silent as everyone waited for Callan's answer. He walked slowly toward her. Her hands were behind her back. Her eyes stared at the floor. She didn't tremble. She didn't speak. She didn't move. Callan stopped in front of her and knelt. She didn't look at him. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The girl flinched, as if shocked. "I said, what's your name?" he asked again softly. Her lips parted, but no sound came. She looked at him, eyes wide, like she'd never been asked that before. The court started whispering. Some laughed. Others looked confused. "She doesn't have one," a guard said with a smirk. "You can name her if you want, or just use the number." Callan stood up slowly and looked at the commander. "I accept the rewards of tools and crystals," he said clearly. "But not her. I don't take people as property." The commander narrowed his eyes. "She is not a person. She is bred for use. She is a gift." "She's alive," Callan replied. "She has eyes. She understands. That makes her a person to me." Gasps echoed through the room. No one had ever refused such a reward before. The girl looked up at Callan. Truly looked at him. He saw tears forming in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. The commander shook his head. "If you don't accept her, she will return to the auction lines." Callan stared at the girl again. She had not spoken a word, but in her eyes, he saw something: pain, fear, and maybe hope. He sighed. "Then I'll take her, but not as a thing. I'll take her as someone I want to help." The commander waved a clawed hand. "Do as you wish, strange human." Callan turned to her again. "Come with me. You don't have to speak yet, just walk beside me." She hesitated, then slowly stepped forward. She followed him out of the hall. No chains, no rope. Just two pairs of footsteps, walking quietly away. Later, inside his small living quarters on the space station, Callan gave her water and a blanket. He didn't touch her. He didn't give orders. He simply sat across from her and said, "You don't have to be afraid. No one will hurt you here." The girl didn't speak. She just held the cup of water close and looked around the room. "Do you understand me?" Callan asked. She gave a small nod. "Do you want me to give you a name?" he asked. She looked down, unsure. "I'll only give you one if you want it," Callan said. "Not like a label. Like something real. Something that belongs to you." She looked into his eyes. After a long pause, she gave the faintest nod. Callan smiled. How about Leary? She repeated it softly, like testing the sound for the first time in her life. Leary. Callan nodded. Leary. That's your name now. Yours to keep. And for the first time since he had met her, she smiled. Leary sat on the edge of the small bed, her back straight, hands folded in her lap. She didn't know what to do. Callan had given her a name, a real name, not a number, not a command. Just Leary. The name sounded soft, like something made of light. It didn't hurt to hear, it didn't make her feel cold or trapped, and yet she didn't know how to feel. She had never been treated this way before. Callan worked quietly at his table, fixing a broken circuit board. Sparks flew and tiny tools buzzed in his hands. He glanced at her from time to time, but said nothing. He didn't order her to clean, or kneel, or smile. He didn't touch her. He only smiled when their eyes met, and then went back to his work. Leary had seen humans before. Some were cruel, some were careless. They didn't look at her. They looked through her, like she was air. But Callan was different. He had asked her name. He had looked into her eyes like she mattered, and that made her feel scared, because kindness was dangerous. Kindness made you hope, and hope always hurt. The next day, Callan made breakfast. He placed a plate in front of her. It had warm bread, a small slice of fruit, and a drink. I don't know what your species prefers, he said softly, but if this is wrong, you can tell me. She looked at the food, confused. Is something wrong? He asked. No master has ever asked me that, she whispered, her voice soft but clear. Callan sat down across from her. I'm not your master, Leary. I'm just Callan. That's it. She looked at him. Then, why did you accept me? He paused for a moment. Because leaving you behind felt wrong. She lowered her gaze. But I was trained to please. That's all I know. Then, maybe, Callan said gently, it's time you learned something new. That afternoon, he showed her a small device, a simple hover drone that had stopped working. I used to fix these during the war, he said. Want to learn how? She tilted her head. Learn? Yes. You've got sharp eyes. I think you'd be good at it. Leary stepped closer, unsure. No one had ever offered to teach her anything. He handed her a tool and showed her where to open the drone. Her hands trembled as she tried to follow his instructions. The first time, she made a mistake. She froze and waited for the slap. But no slap came. Instead, Callan said, It's okay. Try again. Mistakes are part of learning. She stared at him. You're not angry? He shook his head. Of course not. Leary tried again. This time, she connected the wires correctly. The drone beeped and floated a few inches into the air. She gasped softly, covering her mouth. You did that, Callan said with a smile. She smiled too. A real one, small and unsure, but real. As the days passed, Leary started changing. She no longer sat still like a statue. She walked around the room, curiously touching books, tools, and screens. She spoke short sentences, asked quiet questions, and sometimes laughed, just a little. Callan never rushed her. He never raised his voice. He simply let her be. One evening, they sat near the window, watching ships fly by in the dark sky of the station's orbit. Do you ever miss your home? He asked gently. Leary was silent for a long time. I don't remember it, she said. I was taken when I was very young. Callan nodded slowly. I'm sorry. No one has ever said that to me. He looked at her. You deserve to be told. None of this was fair to you. She turned to face him. Do you think I can be more than what they made me? He smiled. I already see it. But outside the small room, things were not as quiet. Rumors had begun to spread through the station. Some aliens whispered that a human was wasting a gift, that he was treating a trained unit like a person. Some laughed behind his back. Others grew angry. The system that held creatures like Leary in chains did not like change. Callan heard the whispers. He noticed how others stared at him and Leary when they walked the halls, but he didn't care. Leary mattered more than their opinions. One night, as Leary prepared to sleep, she stood by his workbench. "Callan," she said softly. He looked up. "Yes? Do I belong to you?" He blinked. "What do you mean?" "Do I belong to anyone now?" He stood up, walked to her, and shook his head. "No. You belong to yourself. That's the truth." She placed a hand on her chest, unsure what that meant, but deep inside it felt right. "Then I want to stay here. With you. Not because I have to, but because I feel safe." Callan smiled. "You're welcome here, always." And as she lay on the bed that night with a warm blanket and her own name echoing softly in her mind, Leary felt something she had never known before. Not fear, not confusion, not obedience. She felt peace. The space station floated peacefully in orbit, far above the dust-covered mining planet below. Inside the quiet engineering quarters, Callan worked at his bench, and Leary sat beside him, carefully holding a small tool in her hand. "What does this wire connect to?" she asked softly. Callan pointed to the spot on the circuit. "Right there." "Good. That powers the navigation sensor." She nodded, her fingers moving with more confidence now. Each day she learned faster, asked more questions, and made fewer mistakes. Callan smiled to himself. She had come so far in just a few days, but not everyone was smiling. In the upper levels of the station, word had spread fast. "She's talking. Now?" She laughs. He teaches her engineering. He calls her by a name. A meeting was held by Zural station officers and a few alien commanders. They sat around a long glass table, eyes glowing with concern. A thick file was passed from hand to hand. On the cover was her new name, Leary. She was classified as a Class 4 reward unit. One officer growled, "Now she's walking around, like a free person." "This behavior is dangerous," another added. "Other units may try to follow her example." A tall alien with deep red skin spoke. "This human, Callan, he must be watched. He's causing disorder." They all agreed. The Empire had built its system on control. If creatures like Leary began to think for themselves, it could break everything. Back in the workshop, Leary was fixing a broken scanner. Callan leaned against the table, watching her work. "You're getting really good at this," he said. She smiled slightly. "Because I have a good teacher." He laughed. "No, it's because you're smart. I just hand you the tools." Her smile grew. "I like learning. It makes me feel strong." "Good," he said. "Because you are." There was a soft beep from the door. Callan walked over and pressed the panel. It slid open with a hiss. A tall figure stood outside. "Station. Official Mrakor, a Zural supervisor." "Engineer Callan," Mrakor said. "We need to talk." Callan stepped out, keeping the door slightly open. Leary watched from inside, her fingers pausing on the scanner. In the hallway, Mrakor kept his voice low. "There are complaints," he said. "About what?" Callan asked calmly. "About you treating a reward unit as an equal. That's not our way. You're confusing her." "She's not confused," Callan replied. "She's learning. She's free." Mrakor narrowed his eyes. "She's not free. She's registered property. If you don't return her, there will be consequences." Callan didn't step back. "Then maybe the system is wrong." Mrakor's expression turned cold. "You have been warned." He turned and walked away. That night, Leary sat quietly, her fingers curled around a small data chip Callan had given her. A simple puzzle game. But she wasn't focused on it. "Was that man here to take me?" she asked softly. Callan didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Yes, but I won't let them." She looked down. "What if they erase me again? My mind, my voice." He sat beside her. "Then we stop them before they do." Leary touched her collar. "If I remove this, will they come faster?" "Maybe," Callan said. "But I think you're ready." Leary slowly pulled the collar from her neck. The moment it came off, her hands trembled. But she did not cry. She dropped it on the table like it was trash. "I don't want to be owned ever again," she said firmly. "You won't be," Callan promised. 2 days later, something changed. A small group of human workers knocked on Callan's door. One of them, a woman named Dara, looked surprised to see Leary sitting at a table, reading a small engineering manual. "She's reading?" Dara whispered. "Yes," Callan said. "She's learning fast." Leary looked up and gave a polite nod. "Hello?" Dara looked amazed. "She talked to me." Another man stepped forward. "Callan, people need to see this. We didn't know they could speak. We didn't know they had feelings." "They always did," Callan replied. "The system just didn't care." That night, Callan made a choice. He connected his terminal to the station's message system and recorded a short video. Leary sat beside him. She was nervous, but she wanted to help. "Hello," Callan said to the camera. "This is Leary. She's not a pet. She's not an object. She's not a toy. She's a person." He paused, then looked at her. "Go ahead." Leary took a deep breath. "I was taken when I was small. I was trained to obey. I never had a name until now. But I remember the pain. I remember being scared. I remember wanting to speak but being told not to." She looked into the camera. "I am Leary. I am not a number. I am alive." They sent the message quietly, but within hours it spread faster than anyone expected. All across the station and soon beyond, people watched. Some were shocked, some were angry, but many were moved. On distant ships and colonies, others like Leary saw the message. They began to whisper to each other. They began to remember their real names. They began to hope. The Empire had kept them silent for too long. Now they were starting to speak. The station's quiet hallways were not so quiet anymore. Something had changed. The video of Leary's voice had reached far. People whispered in the halls. Workers stared at her when she walked with Callan. Some smiled. Some didn't. But all had seen it. The girl who used to be silent, now speaking with strength. In corners of the galaxy, others like her began to whisper their own names. Some even removed their collars. A small spark had turned into a flame, and the Empire was not happy. In a large dark room, Commander Thyros of the Zural Empire stood in front of a screen. On it was the video, Callan's voice, Leary's eyes, her name. "This cannot continue," Thyros hissed. Advisors nodded. "She speaks like she's free," one growled. "Many of the reward units are becoming restless," another added. There was a small riot on Deck 8 of the southern colony. "The virus is not in the systems," Thyros said coldly. "It's in their minds." He slammed his fist on the table. "End it. Erase her. Silence him." Orders were sent. Inside Callan's small room, he and Leary were preparing for the day. She was laughing at a broken cleaning droid that danced in circles when it malfunctioned. "You sure you didn't break it on purpose?" Callan teased. "I only cleaned the sensors." She smiled. He handed her a small tool. "Then let's fix it together." Suddenly the door alarm beeped sharply. Emergency override. Before Callan could react, the door slammed open. 4 guards rushed in, Zurel soldiers in dark armor. One grabbed Callan. The others moved toward Leary. "No," she shouted, stepping back. "By order of Commander Thyros, the unit is to be returned and reset," the lead guard barked. "She has a name," Callan yelled, struggling against the grip. "She's not a unit." "Silence the human," the guard snapped. Leary's heart pounded. She looked around. Her mind raced. Then she made a choice. She ran, not to escape but to stop them. She grabbed Kalen's plasma tool from the bench and pointed it at the guard holding him. "Let him go!" she shouted, voice shaking but clear. Everyone froze. The guards hadn't expected her to fight back. "She is not trained to resist," one said. "Well, she is now," Kalen replied. In that moment, alarms began to sound across the station. Boom! An explosion rocked the hallway nearby. Smoke filled the air. A loud voice echoed through the station. "To all reward units, run. This is your moment. You are not alone." Kalen looked at Leary. "That wasn't us." Leary nodded. Others heard the message. A flash of movement came from behind the guards. Dara and 2 other human workers rushed in, throwing flash grenades. "Get them out!" Dara shouted. The room exploded in light and sound. Kalen grabbed Leary's hand, and together they ran down the corridor past stunned guards into the service tunnels. In the narrow tunnels beneath the station, Leary's feet pounded against metal floors. Kalen ran beside her, breathing hard. "We have to get to Dock 6, he said. "There's a supply ship leaving soon." "Will they let us board?" she asked. "They'll have to. You're not safe here anymore." They reached the lower platform, where a small crowd had gathered. More escapees, others like Leary, stood wearing torn collars and wide eyes. Some were with humans. Some stood alone. All had heard the call. A young man stepped forward. "You're Leary," he said. "We saw." "Your face," she nodded. "We can't stay. They'll come for all of us." A loud noise behind them made everyone freeze. More guards. Black armor. Red lights on weapons. "There!" one shouted. "Seize the traitors!" Panic filled the air. People ran. Kalen grabbed Leary's hand. "This way!" They ducked behind a crate and moved along the shadows. Suddenly, a small child, a blue-skinned girl no older than 5, stood alone, crying. Leary stopped. "We can't leave her." Kalen looked back. "We don't have time," but she had already run to the child and scooped her up. "It's okay," Leary whispered. "You're safe now." The girl clung to her neck, trembling. Kalen shook his head but smiled. "You're braver than me." They reached the supply ship's ramp just as it was closing. "Wait," Kalen shouted. A worker inside saw them and opened the hatch. "Hurry!" They jumped inside, and the ship lifted off just as the guards reached the dock. Blaster shots fired, but the ship broke free. Leary sat down, still holding the child. Her chest heaved. Kalen dropped beside her, covered in dust. "You saved her," he said, looking at the girl. Leary nodded. "I had to. She was me once." As the ship moved into open space, the passengers looked around at each other. Former reward units, scared but free. Humans and aliens together. Leary looked out the window. The stars seemed brighter. "I'm not just free," she said softly. "I'm alive." Kalen looked at her. "Yes. And the galaxy is finally seeing it." For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like someone's property. She felt like someone's future. The supply ship drifted through space, silent except for the hum of the engine. Inside, the rescued group sat close together, tired, quiet, but safe. Some whispered. Some rested. Some still looked around, unsure if it was real. Among them sat Leary, holding the young alien girl she had saved. Kalen sat beside her, watching her gently wrap the girl in a warm blanket. "She hasn't spoken yet," Leary said softly. "But she's not afraid anymore." Kalen nodded. "Because she saw you. You gave her hope." Leary looked at the child's sleeping face. "No one gave me hope back then. Not until you." The ship made its way to a neutral station called Haven's Reach, a place known for offering safety to those who had no home. It wasn't part of the Zurel Empire. It didn't follow their rules. Many refugees had settled there over the years, building a new life with freedom. As the ship docked, the passengers looked out at the large windows. The station was built inside an old asteroid. Lights glowed from the inside like a giant lantern in space. Ships of all shapes and sizes floated nearby. A calm voice spoke through the speakers. "Welcome to Haven's Reach. You are safe here." The ramp opened and warm air rushed inside. Callan helped the others out. Leary walked slowly, still holding the child. No one shouted at them. No one gave orders. People simply offered water, food, and blankets. Some even smiled. For the first time in her life, Leary entered a place where she wasn't a product. She was just a person. In the days that followed, Leary and Callan stayed in a small room on the station. It had 2 beds, clean air, and real sunlight shining from artificial panels above. The child, who they named Mina, slept between them. Leary helped other former reward units settle in. Many still wore collars. Some were too scared to speak. Others only cried. But Leary sat with them, listened, and told them her story. "Was like you," she told one young boy. "I thought I had no voice, but I do, and so do you." She became a quiet leader among them. Callan watched her grow with pride. One morning, as Callan worked on a broken farming drone for the station's greenhouse, Leary came to him holding a data pad. "Look," she said, showing him a design. It was a tool she had made herself, a cleaner that worked twice as fast using solar charge. "You made this?" Callan asked, surprised. She nodded. "I want to help. I don't want to just survive. I want to build things too." He smiled. "Then let's build a workshop together." And they did. Weeks turned into months. Leary and Callan opened a small repair shop on Haven's Reach. They trained others, humans, aliens, and those once called pleasure animals, to work with machines. The shop became more than just a place for repairs. It became a symbol of change. Outside, a simple sign hung with 2 words, "Leary's Hands." She chose the name herself. "Why not Callan's Workshop?" someone once asked. "Because I'm proud of her," Callan said. And this is her story too. One evening, as the stars glowed outside the glass dome above, Leary and Callan sat on a bench watching Mina play with a few other children. She laughed freely now. No fear. No color. "She's happy," Leary said. "Because you gave her a future," Callan replied. Leary looked at him, her eyes calm. "You gave me one too." They sat in silence for a moment, then she reached out and held his hand. "You didn't just give me a name," she said. "You helped me believe it meant something." He turned to her. "It does. You're Leary, a teacher, a builder, a guide." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "And what are you?" He smiled. "Just the guy lucky enough to meet you." They sat like that for a long time. Back on the edge of the Empire, angry leaders still searched for her. Posters were spread, bounties offered, but many refused to help. More and more people had seen her message. More and more people had changed their thinking. The name Leary was now whispered not as a secret, but as a symbol of freedom. She was once given as a gift. Now, she was giving others a reason to live. And as she stood one morning, helping Mina fix a drone, Leary looked out at the stars and spoke softly. "I used to be nothing, but now I am someone." Callan walked up behind her. "And you'll always be more than they ever imagined." She smiled. "Because someone gave me a name and love." He smiled back. "And you made both mean something."